Wrestling has been part of this world for several hundred years. Being considered one of the first to be part of the Olympics, wrestling is a sport that is practiced all over the world that shows no signs of slowing down. Today, I want to inform you about what wrestling really is. And I'm not talking about John Cena and his band of WWE goons. I'm talking about the real deal wrestling. Today, I will talk about the rules of a specific wrestling style called folk style. I will explain the scoring system as well as illegal moves and stuff that you're not supposed to do. So with that, let's get into it. Folk style is it's the generic type of wrestling. There are 3 2-minute periods with overtime periods following if the match does not end. Rather than a field, the match actually takes place on a mat that is 38 feet by 38 feet with a 28-foot circle within the mat. So the boundaries are the circle, and the extra space is just for if you go outside. Once you take 2 steps out of bounds, the match is stopped and then resumes in the center. In the middle of the big circle, there is a starting circle as well as starting lines where you line up before the match begins, and that is where also you would you'd be in your base to begin second and third period. The goal of the match is to either outscore your opponent or to pin your opponent. Either one will get you a win. Pin is more desirable. If you're in a team competition, pins will get you the most points. Points are scored a variety of ways, and that is what I will be explaining next. So, in total, there are 5 ways to receive points in a folk style match. Takedown, which equals 2 points. Escapes, which are 1 point. Reversals, which are 2 points. Near fall, which can either be 2 or 3 points. And penalty points, which I will talk about in a couple minutes. So a takedown occurs when a wrestler is on their feet. If they take the other wrestler down from their feet and they get behind them and gain control, that is a takedown, and that will be 2 points. If a wrestler's on bottom and he escapes the man who is covering him on top, that is considered 1 point, and they will be back in the neutral position. If the same wrestler is on the bottom, but instead of standing up, reverses the wrestler and gets behind him and gets control, that is 2 points and is called a reversal. If the wrestler on top is able to turn the bottom wrestler and expose their back to the mat, depending on how long the back is exposed, 2-second count is 2 points, and then up to 5 seconds. And once you get 5 seconds of back time, that's 3 points. And from there, you can try to pin your opponent or let him over, release the pinning combination, and keep going. And with that, let's move on to penalties and other bad situations that you should try to avoid. Wrestling being a physical sport, there's only so much you can and can't do. For example, you're not allowed to lock your hands together while you're on top. Unless you have an arm trap, though, that is considered a pinning combination, so you can't do that. Once you stand up, you cannot have somebody's arm locked in when you lock your hands. You're allowed to lock your hands when they stand up to bring them back down to the mat, but if you have an arm trapped, you cannot do that, because if you bring them down on their shoulder, you could dislocate or break their shoulder. Also, another move that is highly illegal is called a full Nelson. Basically, a full Nelson is if you take your arm, and let's say my arms are like this, and somebody laces their arm underneath my arm and comes up here and grabs my head, that'd be considered a half Nelson. But if they do both arms and grab my head like this, that's considered a full Nelson. And it's very easy to break somebody's neck by doing that, so it's a very frowned upon move. The second you touch both your hands on their head like that, the match will stop instantly, and your opponent will receive 1 penalty point. And finally, you're not allowed to just not do anything and stall. You'll be warned for stalling, and after that, an opponent will receive 1 point for every stalling warning that occurs. Eventually, after 5 warnings, you will be disqualified. Today, I only scratched the surface of what wrestling is. For this speech, I spoke about 6 minutes. Not even 6 minutes. No, I didn't speak for 6 minutes. The last speech I tried to create took about 14 minutes. So there's a lot more that I kind of had to leave out because it's a little too much detail. But today, I mentioned to you the rules of folk style, how the match is set up, how to score, and what not to do in a wrestling match. So after this speech that I have performed for all of my classmates, I hope that you have a little more understanding for what wrestling really is, rather than just WWE bashing each other with chairs and sledgehammers. It's a real sport, very competitive all throughout the world. So if you have a chance, look into some wrestling. It's very great stuff. Being a wrestler for 14 years, I believe. Yeah, 14 years. I love wrestling with all my heart. So